Alright, so this is my Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 3 spoiler video. We're going to go into what I liked and what I did not like and how I felt with specific events, moments, fights, etc. from Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2. If you have not watched the final 5 episodes, this is not one of those times where you should go on Wikipedia to read what happens or, oh, it's okay, I'm alright with spoilers. I understand that. I am too for some things. This works so much better the less you know. I almost went into it knowing too much, and it still hit me because I didn't know everything. I still would recommend seeing the last 5 episodes. So we're going to go into what I liked and did not like. So was this the perfect ending? Almost. I think they came very, very close to actually having the perfect ending for this show. It was the perfect ending for the main characters. Now I'm going to go into all that here in detail. But it's very hard to have a perfect ending when you've introduced so many characters. And sometimes when they wrapped up some of the stories, it felt rushed, and we're going to go into detail on it. Like I said, this is not... Look, I loved these last 5 episodes. I felt emotions. I felt like sad, happy, gleeful, joyous, motivated. I also felt the power of the performances. William Zabka delivers a career performance in episode 3, or, well, Cobra Kai Season 6, episode 13 is really specifically what we're talking about here. That is something that I would have never thought I'd ever see, and we saw it. And the way this was written to really close out the Karate Kid, like, the Karate Kid story's been closed out. I know that with Legends, you know, Ralph Macchio's coming back, but the story going back to 84, the consequences of the characters have been successfully closed thanks to Josh Heald, Hayden Schlossberg, and John Hurwitz, the 3 showrunners, creators, and writers of Cobra Kai. Now, again, there were some things that I would have done differently, but for the most part, it was fantastic. Episode 12 moved me. Episode 11 did too, and gave me some pretty big shocks. Episode 12 was very touching, and episode 13, 14, and 15 really did feel like a true, like, Karate Kid final, like, movie. Like, this actually gave me the vibes of Endgame early on. Just how they're recovering from, it's not going to be as big as the snap, but Quan dying at the end of part 2 set up, you know, the rest of this, you know, these last 5 episodes. And the first 2 episodes were done just to build up the big Sekai Taikai semifinal and final match. So, again, like I said in my non-spoiler, there's going to be fans that are going to be pissed off because Hawk didn't do anything in these 3 episodes. I mean, he helped, but no Hawk fights. He hasn't really been pushed since the season 4 finale. Dimitri was just relegated to being a side character. They all trained with Robbie, but that's about it. And they trained with Miguel. Neither Devin nor Kenny, I don't think, had any lines for the entire 5 episodes. And that was weird. And I am very curious to see what they're going to do with the deleted scenes, if there is more material out there that they left on the cutting room floor so the episodes wouldn't be long. The last episode was 50 minutes, though. And the one before that was 45. So you really got a lot of story, right? Almost like a feature-length film. This show was so intelligently written. It's not perfect. There are other shows that you could qualify as being higher. But as far as getting us to care about the characters, care about the journey of Johnny, care about Daniel learning from his mistakes, and learning that winning helped him but also hindered him. Daniel coming to terms with the fact that Miyagi is a flawed man, or was a flawed man who had to learn and be better, all culminating with Johnny Lawrence 40 years after the original Karate Kid movie in the real world asking Daniel LaRusso to be his sensei against Sensei Wolf. They literally did Rocky 2 when they're training and running with the kids behind them, and Rocky 3 where Johnny asked his rival, his biggest rival, to help him. And it benefited him because if Johnny did not know Miyagi-Do, he would not have been able to counter Sensei Wolf's move and win the fight. The speech that Daniel gave and seeing Daniel come out to the Black Cobra Kai gi with Chosen was absolutely surreal. Just absolutely surreal. And having the entire valley behind Johnny, it really was the sweep the leg video, except with a bigger budget and a real story. The way they built up Sensei Wolf as being this terrible person, just a horrible, horrible man, even injuring Johnny before the fight and just trashing him, but ultimately losing. And then when he lost, he bowed at the end. And that was powerful, because that tells me that even Sensei Wolf, a guy who's pretty damn evil, probably second only to Terry Silver as far as evil villains go in this franchise, even he was like, he beat me, he was the better man. And that's what this is all about. Because even when Daniel beat Johnny in the 84 film, that was addressed. When Kreese went to Johnny in episode 13, and I was watching this with many people, including many men, pause. There were girls, there were a few guys, we were watching it together. There was like 15 people crying. To see Martin Kove pull that, you know he's a genuinely great actor. And again, William Zabka, Billy Zabka, with the performance of his life, crying, telling John Kreese, I loved you, I idolized you, and I couldn't beat Daniel, and you broke my trophy and treated me like a second-class citizen and abandoned me. Oh my God, you have no idea how hard that hit me, bro, because I have abandonment issues. You have no clue what that scene did to me, man. Like, it's just incredible. And then the ending of Tory and Robbie being like these martial arts, like, you know, like advertising social media influencers or whatever, what Zara was doing, I love that for them. You know, a lot of folks think Robbie got robbed, and even I thought that Robbie and Quan was going to be the Sekai Kai Final. This is back when season 6 first started, or right around part 1. Because I didn't know the Iron Dragons were coming, right? So I assumed they would be down to Robbie and Quan, and Robbie would win the Sekai Taikai and finally not be in second place. But when he beat Quan in episode 9, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Then what's going to be the main event? Like, it kind of threw me for a loop. And then, of course, we saw what happened. I think that was a purposeful subversion of what you think is going to happen. What I'm trying to say is, and I might do a whole video about this, I know Robbie Keane fans are mad he didn't get to win the big one. But listen to what he said to Johnny in the locker room when he told him that karate got him all these amazing things. Friends, his dad, and Tanner Buchanan's crying. All these things that, yeah, maybe I got second place. I might do a whole video on this because Robbie Keane ain't doing so bad, bro. I know he didn't win the big one, but not only could that be a storyline that can be explored in a future show or movie when the writers come back to go into this universe again, but even if they don't do that, he's got Tory, bro. He's got Tory. You don't feel bad for him. He's got Tory, and thankfully he healed from his wounds. But I may, like I said, I may do a whole separate video on it. The stuff with Johnny and his mom at the graveyard or at the cemetery, I mean, that was really, really touching. You know, we had heard about his mom, and we saw in the earlier seasons, like, you know, sort of his upbringing, and, you know, it came full circle. And then Daniel's entire thing where he's like, look, this style of karate is not what I teach, but I believe in you. And that was just, Daniel LaRusso himself had an incredible character arc. You've got Tory, who went from somebody who had to take care of her whole family because with a sick mom, her mom dies, and then she ends up, becoming a champion. And also, what's interesting and sad is that Kreese had become like her father figure, and now he's gone. Which, besides Johnny and Daniel, and actually maybe not besides, maybe including them, John Kreese, I think, may have had the most powerful character arc of anyone. Especially if you go back and watch the season 3 stuff, how the Vietnam War and how it affected him. Like, there's a lot of truth in that. The Vietnam War, people that went to Vietnam did not come back the same. Their brains were fried with the things they experienced. And there's a lot of suppressed anger there, vitriol, and PTSD. I mean, miles and miles and miles of PTSD. And John Kreese, after the death of Quan, to finally come and finally apologize to Johnny after 40 years. People have been waiting a long time for that. Martin Kove talked about it. And then the way that Kreese and Silver went out, that was... Look, I had a feeling they were going to fight. I had that feeling. And the fact that Terry Silver took this kid's karate thing so seriously that he wanted to have Johnny's newborn baby and wife kidnapped and threatened. Dude, this is kids karate. And you're over here like... behaving literally like an 80s villain, which is where Terry Silver belongs. And then the fight on the boat and the explosion, and that was just, oh man, in some ways it is a perfect ending to those two characters, because we knew they weren't going to make it out of this season. We just knew. The Cobra Kai Korea storyline, though, that is one thing I will criticize. And I talked about this in my review for part 1 of the Cobra Kai Season 6 episodes. And that is the fact that Kreese's sensei, it's very hard to swallow that he's still alive and still that active. Because Kreese is already a very old man. And this dude should be dead for all intents and purposes. And he's still alive. And now that we see the whole story, I think that was a wasted character. And some are not going to agree with me, and I understand. I do understand that. You could have done this entire season without ever showing him. You could have, if you rewrite it, you could have done it to where Sensei Kim, the granddaughter, after what happens to Quan, she has a change of heart. And she says, we're pulling out of this tournament. This is too much. Murder is a bit too much for me, etc. They could have figured out different ways of getting out of this instead of just having her kill her grandfather in, the first or second episode or whatever. I don't know, man. That character did not need to be in this show, in my opinion. That was the worst thing from part 1. That was the worst thing from part 3, in my opinion. The only other nitpick I have, right? Her killing him and taking over is fine. Chosen getting with her was actually kind of realistic. He got friend zoned by Kumiko, so he finds her, and that's, they kind of belong together because they're both crazy. But then when you've got besides that, the only other nitpick that I've got is that I wanted more training. Axel and Zara were unbeatable. Axel didn't take a single hit. Now, obviously, Robbie and Miguel improved since Barcelona, but Axel was also training. I wanted a little bit more of the training. I wanted a little bit more believability in different types of techniques they were doing. They did the whole virtual reality thing, but I wanted more than that. I actually wanted a little bit more tough training, like how Johnny T's, Rocky 4 training. Not exactly that, but I mean, it just feels like, yes, Robbie and Miguel improved, but when you watch the episodes, part of me looks at it and says that it's almost more like Axel was nerfed. You know, it really feels that way to a degree. It feels more like Axel was nerfed and distracted than Miguel and Robbie actually got that much better. But they did both get better. And I thought the way they handled the Robbie injury was fine because they were showing that Robbie could have beat this guy if the fight continued. So that tells me that Robbie and Miguel are a lot closer than people realize. But like I said, I'll talk more about that in a separate thing. And the way they were able to finagle the rules to where Kreese gave Cobra Kai back to Johnny, and we go all the way back to season 1. And then the part where Johnny gives Miguel the headband, passing the torch down to him. He is the Karate Kid. And Miguel just goes in there and smashes Axel. And then after all is said and done, Axel himself actually grows a set and doesn't even want to be around Sensei Wolf. That was powerful, man. That was powerful. The whole wedding proposal from episode 12 and with Bobby and the hospital with the baby. I liked all that stuff. It was cutesy stuff. But I know when I was watching it, and it was very romantic, but I know when I was watching it, I was thinking, isn't this normally the last episode? You know what I mean? When you look at these shows, right? When you look at like long-running soap operas or dramas, usually the wedding is the last episode. A lot of them end with that. Especially some of the novellas from like Mexico and Latin America. There's always a big wedding at the end. Here they did it in the episode 12 of 15. And I like that because they had the last 3 episodes really become like a movie. Really feel like the Karate Kid / Rocky type of sports, drama, martial arts action, underdog story. Johnny was the underdog against Sensei Wolf. He said it himself. Wolf was younger and hits harder. And he's not afraid to cheat, which he did. In some ways, Sensei Wolf represented what Johnny could have become if he kept going down the dark path. But when Kreese realized, oh my God, I have been doing this wrong, and I may have sent Tory and Johnny down the wrong path. But then when he finally accepts, when he finally takes accountability, he shows that he really does love Johnny. And that was good. That was really good. In episode 15, when they played You're the Best Around, I screamed. And I loved it. I will say this, though, again, some nitpicking. They didn't play the second verse. It went right from the second chorus, well, the first chorus to a bridge, and I didn't like that. But I loved the montage of Johnny being trained by Daniel. And I loved how if Daniel's the sensei, he has to give Johnny a pep talk, and he does it the Cobra Kai way. Like, there were so many deep moments in these episodes that honestly would have shocked the world who saw the old 3 Karate Kid movies. Everything from Silver and Kreese's explosion, everything from that to Johnny and Daniel not only being friends, which we started seeing that relationship in season 2 and really season 3 when they both had Kreese as their villain and started working together. And then it was on and off for a while, but here was the culmination of their friendship. Daniel even went so far as to get Johnny a deal on the Cobra Kai dojo. I thought going in, he was going to buy the entire plaza and let Johnny rent there super cheap. But no, he did it. But they also set it up to where from now on, kids will learn both Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai, offense and defense. And I like that. That's a very happy, solid ending for everyone involved. It really was. I thought everyone had a good ending. I know some people are pissed off that Sam didn't fight. But when you think about it, go back to some of the earlier seasons, Sam was never really somebody who was competing in martial arts for sport. She learned how to fight to protect herself and self-defense, especially when Tory was breathing down her neck all the time. But she really was not like, Yeah, season 4, she had that tournament fight, but she was really not someone who was going to follow in like Johnny Lawrence's footsteps or even Daniel. Like Daniel's whole thing is he wanted to learn karate to protect himself from Miyagi. I'm sorry, from Miyagi to protect himself from Cobra Kai, from Johnny and his friends. And then they decided to settle it in a tournament. That's how Sam was. Sam wasn't doing this for sport or for success. She has her own road, and it's to Okinawa with Miguel. And Tory and Robbie, on the other hand, they really did need that publicity to have direction in their lives, and that was it was the right choice. It really was. The scene at the very end where you have the two creators at the table, those are two of the writers talking about a Back to the Future like reboot or something, and then you've got Daniel doing the chopsticks with the fly, and then Johnny squishes it. Just a great example of what makes them different, and yet somehow they work great together. Something else I want to talk about is the Miyagi CGI. How did I feel about that? I did not mind it. I really didn't. Pat Morita's family signed off on it, and Miyagi is the one responsible for all of this. Like, you know, it's the Miyagi verse, and Daniel getting to fight alongside his master against, you know, basically guys dressed like skeletons meant to mimic his high school bullies, which obviously was a dream sequence. And Daniel learning that, okay, you're going to be better off at this point not fighting. And where did that lead? It led to him training Johnny. So what the show's telling you is that Miyagi's teachings is really what Daniel understood at the end of all this, because he became Johnny's teacher. And Miyagi-Do would live on with Johnny because he used the defensive moves against Sensei Wolf. And he did what Miyagi did. He basically coached Johnny to beat a tougher opponent, which is what Miyagi did. It was the most Miyagi thing that Daniel did was say, okay, now is not the time for Sam to fight. Now is the time to do something else, figure something else out, which would lead to the black and yellow Cobra Kai coming back. I had no problem with that. One of the things that I also liked is how they explained what happened with the necklace. Now, in my mind, I had always thought that they were going to have Julie Pierce appear and give Daniel more backstory about Miyagi, and that's how they were going to resolve that plot point, just by having her have a conversation with Daniel. She wasn't in this. I don't know if, and I hope we find out. I don't know if maybe Hilary Swank refused, or I know she was like pregnant, so maybe she couldn't, like, she was too close to giving birth, maybe, I don't know. But that would have been something to bring closure to the next Karate Kid and to Daniel. Instead, Lucille LaRusso, his mom, reveals that the necklace that Miyagi took was actually hers. And so that was powerful. That, and Daniel finally realized, like, yes, he may have killed somebody at the Sekai Taikai, probably accidentally. We didn't get details on that. But Miyagi was a flawed man in his youth, but turned out to be a pretty good guy and still a hero. And that was a beautiful resolution to that story. I mean, they did a great job with wrapping this up. If this is the end of the Karate Kid universe, I gotta say I'm okay with it. It's not, but I'm okay with it. I might do a whole separate video about spinoffs. One more thing. I do wish that Ali Mills, Kumiko, and Mike Barnes would have been in this last batch of episodes, even if it's just for one cameo. I understand they might not have been needed, right? I would have loved to have seen Mike Barnes train Johnny, or help train him alongside Chosen and Daniel. And I know Sean Kanan would have done it, but I mean, that I thought that was kind of missing. I really would have liked to have seen that. You know, it would have been sweet. You know, tying back these characters. And Allie would have been, they kind of already closed the book on Allie in season 3. So I'm not super upset about it or anything like that, but it would have been cool to see it. Instead, though, they just focused on, again, the main people. Johnny, Daniel, Robbie, Miguel, and Tory and Sam, alongside Silver and Kreese. And yeah, Silver was, I actually got bummed out when Silver died. Not because, I mean, he's evil, right? Objectively, he's a bad guy, but like, God, Thomas Ian Griffin was so entertaining in this show. He was such a breath of fresh air for season 4 and 5. And for him to go out like that, I mean, he was going to die anyways. They revealed he had the illness. They didn't say what the illness was, though. But they did reveal it, that he was sick, and that it was his last stand. That whole scene where he picked up Johnny in the car, right? That felt like I was in the Fast and Furious movies all of a sudden. Like, it just felt so extra, but in a good way. By this point, Cobra Kai is just crazy. Even though this season was a bit more grounded, I would say, because they went back to kind of the flavor of season 1. We never saw Axel or Zara again. I don't know what their stories are, if they're going to continue on in the universe or if they'll come back in the future, but it's not about them. Wasn't their story. But again, you have a lot of characters, but it's not their story. It really was all about Johnny and how he changed due to people like Miguel, Daniel, Tory, Sam, and Robbie, of course, his own son, and even Sensei Kreese. Even Sensei Kreese at the very end. Just, they really, emotionally, this was amazing. The girls' fight was extremely acrobatic. It was like 2 Power Rangers going at it. The guys' fight, though, was more strategic. And I like the fact that both fights were different. Like, I like the fact that they weren't the same kind of fight. That makes them stand out. The girls' fight had way flashier moves. You know, Reina Valingayan, I can't pronounce her name, but she's Valingham, whatever. She's really, really good. She's a 13-time Taekwondo world champion. So she's super athletic, and she probably did a lot of that stuff herself with Peyton List's stunt double. But my God, it was flashy. But then you got like Miguel and Axel. Miguel having to remember everything he's learned. Great stuff. Great stuff. This was a great season finale, and our series finale, and I'm glad they got to close the show out right. So many shows get canceled and never get the right endings, or the endings are like, oh, it's, what do you think happened? Leave it up to your imagination. This ending felt like closure, but it also makes me sad. The show needed to end now because we couldn't have another 4 or 5 seasons, because then you're dragging it on for too long. Like, it would start to really suck. And season 6 to many was a step down for a lot of people, although I do think these last 5 episodes will elevate it up. I do think that, based on the emotion and everything. But my point is, you couldn't keep it going. You could take a break and come back later with a movie or with a spinoff. But this chapter is over, and it ended in a way where there was closure for everyone. So if they decide to just never come back to this universe after the film coming out in May, this was a satisfying conclusion. What did you think? I don't know what else to tell you, man. I enjoyed almost every minute of this. Again, the old Sensei Kim stuff, not really for me. I even though I like ancient karate masters and stuff like that from a lot of the Kung Fu movies I grew up with, I thought that was just too goofy, and he wasn't needed for the story. He just wasn't. You could have done a lot of different things. I don't think he was needed to still be alive. But hey, it is what it is. This is not the last video I'm doing on Cobra Kai. There will be more videos coming talking about little plot points and things like that, spin-offs and all that. So look forward to that content. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this damn near 30-minute video. And please feel free to leave your thoughts on this. Really, really great show. Hit me right in the heart, right in the feels. And great ending. Those are my thoughts.